The office should have been noisy at 6 in the evening, phones ringing, chairs rolling across the floor, someone complaining about a broken dashboard or an impossible deadline. Instead, Daniel Mercer heard only the hum of the ventilation system and the faint electrical buzz of his monitor. A red notification occupied the center of the screen. Access revoked. Daniel stared at it, waiting for the message to disappear. It didn't. He reached for the keycard hanging from his belt and pressed it against the reader beside his desk. Red. He tried again. Red. Then his headset crackled. Rebecca Caldwell's voice came through with the calm, practiced warmth she used during company town halls. Daniel, we've decided to part ways. It's for the best. Daniel didn't answer. 20 minutes earlier, he had been preparing quarterly projections. Now his email was gone, his files were inaccessible, and a security guard was standing 30 feet away pretending not to watch him. The monitor went black. For the first time in 11 years, Daniel Mercer had no job, and he had no idea what he had done wrong. His apartment became an archive of contradictions. Daniel covered the dining table with performance reviews, project reports, emails from executives, and printed screenshots he had saved over the years. Exceptional, reliable, leadership potential. Exceeded expectations. Those phrases appeared again and again. The termination letter told a different story. It cited declining performance, difficulty adapting to company culture, and concerns about collaboration. Daniel read the documents until after midnight. Something didn't fit. His performance hadn't deteriorated gradually. According to the termination paperwork, it had collapsed almost overnight. He searched old messages on his personal phone and found the name he had been avoiding. Owen Park. Owen had worked in analytics before transferring to infrastructure 6 months earlier. During his final weeks on Daniel's team, he had made strange comments about employee scoring. The numbers aren't as objective as everyone thinks. Daniel had dismissed it at the time. Now he called. Owen answered after the 5th ring. Daniel, they fired me. Silence. Then Owen said something that made Daniel sit upright. I wondered when they would. Daniel tightened his grip on the phone. What does that mean? Another silence. Not over the phone. They met the following afternoon in a crowded cafe across town. Owen chose a table where he could see both entrances. You look like you're expecting someone to arrest you, Daniel said. I'm expecting someone to recognize me. Daniel almost laughed, but Owen wasn't joking. I need to know why you said you expected this. Owen looked down at his coffee. Because I've seen how Caldwell's system works. What system? Employee evaluation. Daniel leaned forward. Owen explained that months earlier, he had been assigned to maintain an internal analytics service. Most employees saw only their final evaluation scores, but the back end stored every modification. Managers could adjust subjective categories, such as leadership alignment, communication style, and cultural contribution. That wasn't unusual. What bothered Owen was the frequency of the changes. Some employees' scores were being modified repeatedly just before promotion or termination decisions. Daniel felt his stomach tighten. Mine? I don't know. Owen reached into his jacket and placed a small encrypted drive on the table. This isn't proof that they targeted you. It's a backup of the audit system from before I transferred. If your records are there, we'll know what changed. Daniel reached for it. Owen stopped him. If we find something, don't assume we've won. A database without context is just numbers. Daniel looked at the drive between them. Yesterday, he had wanted an explanation. Now, he wanted evidence. Then let's find the context. That night, the first real discovery appeared at 1:17 a.m. Daniel's historical performance records were intact, and they didn't match the records used to terminate him. His leadership score had dropped from 92 to 61. His collaboration score had fallen from 88 to 54. But the changes hadn't been entered during quarterly reviews. They had been made retroactively. Owen pulled up the audit trail. Here. A single administrator account had authorized most of the modifications. Rebecca Caldwell. Daniel stared at the screen. Can she do that? Technically, yes. Can she rewrite historical evaluations? She's not supposed to. Then Owen noticed something else. The changes weren't random. They searched other employee records. One name became 5. 5 became 12. Employees who had challenged Rebecca in meetings, rejected internal initiatives, or disagreed publicly with management, showed similar downward revisions shortly before being denied promotions, transferred, or terminated. Owen opened another data set. This is worse. It was an experimental employee classification model. The system assigned invisible behavioral tags derived from internal surveys, meeting feedback, and manager comments. One category appeared repeatedly beside Daniel's name. Alignment risk. Daniel stared at it. So this wasn't about my work. Owen shook his head. We still don't know what it was about. But somebody was building a reason to remove you. For Daniel, that distinction mattered. They didn't have the whole story, but for the first time, they had a trail. The next morning, Daniel requested a meeting with Naomi Brooks from Human Resources. Naomi had signed his termination paperwork. She greeted him politely, but the moment he placed printed audit logs on her desk, her expression changed. "Where did you get these? Are they real?" I asked where you got them, and I'm asking whether they're real. Naomi stood and closed her office door. "You shouldn't have this." That was enough. Daniel pushed another page toward her. "My scores were changed 3 weeks before I was fired." Naomi said nothing. Rebecca authorized the changes. Still nothing. Then Daniel showed her the other employees. Naomi's eyes stopped moving. "You knew." "No. You signed the termination. I signed what was presented to me." Daniel stood. "Then help me prove that." Naomi looked toward the closed door. For several seconds, neither spoke. Finally, she whispered, "Rebecca controls departmental funding recommendations. Last year, HR challenged one of her restructuring decisions. 2 weeks later, our budget was cut." "Are you saying she threatened you?" "I'm saying everyone learns where the boundaries are." Daniel placed the papers back in his folder. "I'm not asking you to become a whistleblower." "Then what are you asking?" "Preserve the original records." Naomi looked at him sharply. "If those logs disappear tomorrow, I need someone inside the company who can prove they existed today." That frightened her more than anything else he had said. Daniel could see it, but Naomi didn't refuse. Rebecca moved first. Within 48 hours, Daniel received calls from 2 recruiters canceling interviews. A former client stopped returning his messages. Then an executive he had known for years sent him a private warning. "Someone is telling people you're unstable. Be careful." At the company, Rebecca met with Grant Holloway, the executive responsible for corporate strategy. "We have a disgruntled former employee stealing confidential information," she told him. Grant frowned. "Is any of it authentic?" "That's irrelevant. If fragments leak without context, we're exposed." Rebecca wanted legal action immediately. Grant approved a warning letter. Daniel received it that afternoon. The company accused him of possessing proprietary data and threatened litigation if he contacted employees, clients, or journalists. For the first time since his termination, Daniel considered stopping. This wasn't just about getting his job back anymore. He could lose his savings defending himself. Owen could lose his career. Naomi could lose hers. Then another recruiter canceled. Daniel read the legal letter again. Rebecca wasn't defending the truth. She was making the cost of discovering it unbearable. That made his decision easier. Maya Bennett did not believe him. That was exactly why Daniel chose her. She had spent years investigating corporate misconduct and had developed a reputation for killing stories that couldn't survive scrutiny. Daniel handed her the evidence. Maya read silently for almost an hour. Finally, she closed the folder. "You have suspicious records. That's not the same as proving discrimination or corruption." Daniel felt his frustration rise. The scores were altered. "I can see that. By Rebecca Caldwell. I can see that too. Then what exactly are we missing?" "Intent." The word stopped him. Maya pointed at the documents. A company can invent 10 explanations for every one of these changes. Reorganization, calibration, management discretion, bad data. If I publish what you believe instead of what I can prove, their lawyers destroy the story before breakfast. Over the next several days, Maya rebuilt the case from scratch. She contacted former employees without telling them what Daniel had discovered. Several described the same pattern. Strong reviews, conflict with Rebecca, sudden concerns about alignment, career collapse. Meanwhile, Rebecca's campaign intensified. An industry newsletter received anonymous allegations about Daniel's behavior. A potential employer withdrew an offer. While Maya verified records, Daniel watched his professional reputation disappear in real time. Then Naomi called. "I found something." Naomi had located archived meeting notes connected to the evaluation system. They changed everything. The documents showed that Rebecca had personally requested expanded use of cultural alignment indicators when making personnel decisions. More importantly, Naomi had preserved internal messages linking those indicators to specific employees. Daniel was among them. Rebecca had described him as resistant to the company's cultural direction, despite acknowledging that his technical performance remained stocked. Another message called his attempts to participate in internal initiatives performative. The language itself wasn't illegal. The pattern surrounding it was harder to explain. Maya now had the altered records, the audit trail, testimony from former employees, internal policy discussions, and Rebecca's own messages. Naomi still refused to go on record. "If my name appears, I'm finished." Daniel didn't pressure her. Instead, he gave Maya the documents and said, "Build the story without her." Naomi looked surprised. "You need me?" "No, you need the truth." "Those aren't always the same thing." Daniel left. 3 hours later, Naomi called Maya herself. The article went live at 6 in the following morning. It did not accuse Rebecca of a single dramatic conspiracy. It did something more damaging. It showed the pattern. Employee records had been altered retroactively. Subjective cultural metrics had influenced, supposedly, objective performance decisions. Workers who challenged management repeatedly suffered unexplained evaluation declines, and HR records contradicted the company's public explanation for Daniel's termination. By 9 o'clock, the company's board had convened an emergency meeting. By noon, reporters were waiting outside headquarters. Grant Holloway watched the company's share price fall, while legal counsel explained the potential consequences of the audit logs becoming evidence in litigation. For months, Grant had supported Rebecca because her initiatives were popular with investors and tied directly to executive compensation targets. Now the same association threatened him. Rebecca entered his office, expecting support. "We need a unified response," she said. Grant closed his laptop. "No, we need an independent investigation." Rebecca stared at him. "You approved the legal strategy. I approved protecting the company. And now? Now protecting the company means investigating you. It wasn't courage, it wasn't morality, it was self-preservation. And Rebecca knew it. Naomi's decision came later that afternoon. She sat alone in a conference room with outside investigators. For nearly 10 minutes, she couldn't speak. Then she placed her access badge on the table. She admitted signing Daniel's termination despite questioning the evaluation changes. She described the pressure on her. She provided preserved copies of the original records, and she accepted that her own decisions would be investigated as well. "I kept telling myself I was protecting my department," she said. "Eventually, I realized I was protecting the mechanism that made everyone afraid." Her testimony connected the pieces Maya could document from outside with the decisions made inside the company. Rebecca was suspended that evening. Grant announced an independent review of every termination and promotion decision involving the disputed evaluation system. This time, Daniel didn't celebrate. He simply turned off his phone. For the first time in weeks, nobody needed anything from him. 3 weeks later, the company publicly acknowledged that Daniel's termination had relied on improperly modified evaluation records. They offered reinstatement back, pay. A promotion and a private settlement. substantial enough to make the entire nightmare disappear. Quietly, Daniel accepted the compensation. He rejected the job, but he didn't simply walk away. Owen met him 2 months later in a small rented office above a printing shop. There were 4 desks, 3 laptops, and a handwritten company name taped crookedly to the wall. Naomi arrived carrying 2 boxes of compliance documents. She had resigned from the company after completing her testimony. Maya remained a journalist, but her investigation had triggered similar disclosures from workers at several other firms. Daniel opened his laptop. Their new company wouldn't sell ideology. It wouldn't promise to fix corporate culture. It would do something much less glamorous. Audit employee evaluation. Systems. Track changes. Preserve decision histories. Make invisible manipulation visible. Owen looked around the nearly empty office. Not exactly. The empire you lost, Daniel smiled. No, he opened the same performance. Records that had once made him question his own competence. This time, they weren't evidence against him. They were the reason the company existed. On the wall behind him, someone had written their first rule. If a decision can destroy someone's career, there should always be a record of how it was made. Daniel stared at it for a moment. Rebecca Caldwell had tried to rewrite his professional history. Instead, she had accidentally given him his next one.